United States and Kiribati, we have a long shared history going back years. And, matter of fact, um, so part of it was forged during World War II. For example, um, the Battle of Tarawa. Really, one thing I really want to say, a lot of appreciation to the people of Kiribati and to the government of Kiribati is how supportive they've been with the U.S. Department of Defense at the Battle of Tarawa, going look for, so that we can find our missing military personnel. It's a very bloody battle there, and lots of U.S. military personnel were unfortunately killed, but not all their bodies were found. And so we still have a program going on today where it's called a POWMIA accounting agency. They have a contract there with a group that's goes through there and locating remains. So that couldn't be possible if it wasn't for the generosity of the people of and the government of Kiribati. So I want to say thank you. And we also, where Kiribati, the United States, have a long history, it's over like in the Phoenix Islands and the Line Island groups. Um, Before Kiribati independence, a lot of those islands were under a certain condominium arrangement with the United Kingdom. So, there were some different sovereignty claims. So, U.S. has a lot of history as well in the Phoenix and Line Islands that make us, partners. And of course, in the 1979 Treaty of Tarawa, the United States relinquished its claims to thereupon Kiribati's independence. So I think that really shows the great trust that we place in one another, the United States and Kiribati. Yes, so we have it's American Corner, right? Or shelf. So yes, we have an American Corner in Tarawa at the library there, and it's been a fantastic resource. We have lots and lots of resources there for the people of Kiribati to learn more about the United States, and more importantly, also equally important, if you want to study in the U.S., that's a fantastic opportunity, fantastic place to go get some more information from the Education USA program. And then we also have a lot of exchange programs. So many people have gone, many Kiribati have gone to the United States under the IBLP program, Fulbright program, and a whole range of others. And so, in other words, our people-to-people ties are strong. They're already strong, and I expect them to even get even stronger as the years go by. And we can't wait to, when the travel bans are lifted, hopefully next year, we can come visit you. The United States Agency for International Development has been doing a worldwide campaign to help the rest of the world respond to the COVID pandemic, and including in the Pacific. So since last year, we've contributed $35 million to the Pacific, and with technical assistance, buying supplies for the testing and enhanced testing capability, etc. And we do this in close conjunction with our partners and allies, especially through the United Nations. And as well, last year, the United States donated 10 Zoll ventilators to Kiribati, and that also includes technical assistance, on how to use them. So that is, Kiribati deserves a lot of credit. It's really impressive. You've been able to keep COVID out of your borders. There's been a few close calls, but your protocols you have in place have kept it at the border. So you haven't had any community transmission yet. So congratulations on that. And especially until your population gets largely vaccinated, make sure that you keep those border restrictions in place. And related to vaccinations, the United States is the world's single largest contributor to the COVAX facility. The COVAX facility is an arrangement to distribute vaccines fairly across the world. So the United States has contributed $2 billion to that already. We're going to do another $2 billion. We've also contributed or pledged to give hundreds of millions of vaccine doses. So, Kiribati has already received lots of vaccines from the COVAX facility, and we're really proud of that, and we hope that more vaccines will arrive, and we can all agree the sooner the better. So hopefully some of these vaccines that we're distributing in the next few months will be there as well. Climate change is impacting the entire world, and nowhere is it impacting first and perhaps most harshly as against small island states, especially countries like Kiribati is a perfect example. So for that reason, over the last 10, probably closer to 20 years, our main USAID program in the Pacific region has been actually focused on climate change, on things that we can do to help mitigate the impact of climate change, help prepare for it, to help secure funding for that. So so USAID for a long time has been working with the people of Kiribati to secure funding or go through grant application, to raise capacity to apply for grants from, say, the Green Climate Fund, for example, and other institutions. And then, President Biden and Special Presidential Envoy for Climate Change, John Kerry, both have been reaching out to the Pacific. Special Envoy Kerry, he's been in touch with your ambassador, with Kiribati's ambassador to the UN in New York on a number of occasions. So lots of diplomacy going on. What we want to do is this November in the United Kingdom, there's the Conference of Parties, the 26th Conference of Parties is coming up. It's going to be in Glasgow. And similar to how Paris in 2015 was when the world reached a major agreement on climate change, the idea behind Glasgow is to review the Paris Agreement and increase our ambition so that we can do more to combat climate change effectively. We've learned a lot since Paris in the last 6 years, and so this is our time to come up with a new agreement to do this. So the United States, we're looking forward, and when we were getting ready with the Paris Agreement, Kiribati was one of our main diplomatic partners for that agreement, and the same will be this year. So we really appreciate Kiribati's leadership in this area. Well, if you're interested in these exchange programs, what I would really recommend you do is first always go to the U.S. Embassy webpage and follow our social media. We'll often make announcements, about some of these programs and ask interested people to apply, so follow the instructions. We also have programs related to IBLP, which is International Visitor Leadership Program. So that's more focused on younger people. When I say young, probably about 40 and under, but sometimes people over 40 are also invited. Sometimes that's who we know. Like when we go visit these countries, when we go visit our 5 countries of accreditation, or also we're going to USP or some other programs, we will try and identify the future leaders of your country. And so what I would encourage is when you see about, like when I'm finally able to come visit Kiribati, I hope next year, I'd encourage you to, go if I'm doing any public events, go there, try and meet people like Venus and, the rest of us, so that we can have a personal connection. And then as programs come up, sometimes we can think, what, the person I met there would be a perfect candidate for this, maybe a particular exchange program that we're looking for someone. And we have a wide range of exchange programs. You name the topic, we have it. Some years we might not be covering it, but the next year it could be. So some years that, we might be looking for people, for some young lawyers who are going on with something. So we might have a law exchange program where you can do that. We have programs for journalists. We have programs for academics, programs for NGO leaders, and so on. I mean, you name it, we'll have a program for it. So the best thing is just to keep in touch with us and be patient. And if you keep showing your interest in it, we can probably find something for you. Um, Ever since probably I was about 12 years old, I've always been interested in the international news. So I was kind of a unusual kid in that thing. When I got home from school, the usually I could skip, for homework, doing a lot of more interesting TV shows. Although the A Team, if you know that from the 80s, I always had to watch that. But for the most part, I always had to watch the evening newscast, that world newscast on the American ABC or CBS and so on. Um, yeah, Peter Jennings was actually my hero. I always liked to watch his newscast. So the more I read about, more I heard about international news and learning about cultures and so on, the more I wanted to do something like that. See, I grew up on a farm in Indiana, in the state of Indiana, and I hadn't never traveled internationally until I was 23, actually. So I didn't really get a lot of exposure. So I had to read, watch TV, and so on to learn more about that. So then, when I was 16, someone told me, "Hi, if you're interested in international relations like that and politics, maybe you should see about being a diplomat, U.S. Foreign Service officer." So that's what I decided to do, and I eventually achieved my dream. It took a while, but got hired. But there is the USSP program through the University of Hawaii, and so we do send several students from all Pacific Island countries together. We send several students every year to there to work on a bachelor's degree. We also have a few programs for under the Fulbright for graduate students. And so if you're interested in studying in the U.S., I would encourage you to look at that, to look for those U.S. government scholarships. But the other thing to emphasize is that American universities they all have their own independent funding sources. They have what's called a foundations, public and private schools, and so they use a lot of the money in their foundations to help offset tuition for uh, for students who can't afford to pay for all the college cost. So for example, if your family most likely can't afford the tuition for American university, I still encourage you to apply if you want to go to school there. Remember, it's an option, and that sometimes if you get accepted, the university will often find a way to make it affordable for you to pay. So they'll often take some money, especially sometimes sometimes it's an outright scholarship, sometimes it's the university's financial assistance program, sometimes it's merit based, only looking at your grades. Other times it's need based, in which they see what your parents can afford, and if they can't afford all of it, then they'll help offset it. So I really want to emphasize that even without formal scholarship programs that many other countries do, a lot of American universities will find a way to make it affordable for you. Yeah, Peace Corps is a wonderful program around the world. I can't think of a better U.S. government program that has promoted people-to-people ties and made a difference in people's lives, and not only in the lives of the resident, the foreigners, but also of our Peace Corps volunteers. They come back changed people, and it's monumental in how it impacts their lives. So it really is one of those programs which not only benefits the rest of the world, I think it benefits the United States equally. So yes, we did have a Peace Corps program in Kiribati, and I do know the Peace Corps is looking at expanding the program. Right now in the Pacific, we have programs in Fiji, Tonga, and Vanuatu, and Samoa. So we got 4 of them in Pacific Island countries, and so we do want to expand it. There's always budget considerations. That's always an issue. Um, but for sure, not just Kiribati, but as well as other Pacific Island countries, I am cautiously optimistic in the next few years we may have full tilt programs in more Pacific Island countries. And the other thing that we're also looking at, Peace Corps is looking at, besides a normal 2-year volunteer program, is what's called a Peace Corps response program, in which they send volunteers over for shorter periods, usually about 6 months to a year, but they're more subject matter experts in specific areas. So they might be coming over to maybe work in a Ministry of Finance to actually help with crafting a budget and so on, or else maybe on a specific technical climate change issue, they may bring someone over for that. So we have that also might be what we see, at least at the beginning, perhaps in Kiribati. So definitely questions like this are great, encouragement. Anytime we hear that Peace Corps is welcome back, I relay that to the Peace Corps. And so fingers crossed that we'll have a program there soon. Think big, think about what you want to do. What you want to do is when you get out of college, when you get out of high school, whatever level of education is, you want to find a occupation, a job that you actually enjoy doing. And so the way to do that is to set a goal, think about what interests you, find something that interests you, and so that when you're working, you actually enjoy doing. Don't worry so much whether you're going to be rich, middle class, or poor. Just focus on something that will pay the bills, that makes enough money to satisfy you, but most of all, enjoy. And so, like, for example, I always want to be a diplomat, so I set my goal for that. Even when I had a couple, life is always going to throw up roadblocks, passages you're going to have to reroute. That's normal. So if you're going down a path of achieving your goal and something blocks it, that's okay. Or maybe you might even get worse. You might even get knocked down. Well, just stand up, dust yourself off, and go forward again. Maybe choose a different direction. But just, sometimes maybe the shortest route is the one that was lots of blocks. Maybe take a few detours, but get back on there. And if you do that, if you go confidently in the direction of your dreams, you'll be surprised that you'll probably achieve it. So that's what I encourage everyone to do: achieve your dreams. That's actually easy. George Washington. No, I know that a lot of Americans will say George Washington. Sometimes he's the only one they think of, but I do like history, American history, and I've read about a whole lot of them. Read a lot of autobiographies, a lot of biographies about him. Yeah, I think the United States was really fortunate to have someone like George Washington who had the wisdom, intelligence, the fortitude, the determination to set a good example, to be our first president. Win the War of Independence, our military commander, helped write presided over the Constitutional Convention. But be honest with you, he didn't really want to do all that. He was, especially after the Revolutionary War was over, he retired as a general. What he wanted to do was just go retire at his farm in Mount Vernon, Virginia, and just be a farmer the rest of his life. That's what he wanted. He did not want to be president, and he did it for duty. And then he stepped down after 2 terms because he didn't want to set an example of life. He didn't want of this being a lifetime appointment, and he didn't want to, be king or anything like that. He helped craft a system of limited government, checks and balances, and so on. And and our system was far from perfect when it was started, but they also created a system which was able to self-correct. The American people corrected it, and as we moved on, we have this. Our union is still far from perfect, but even when they established it, they said in the preamble to our Constitution in order to establish a more perfect union. They never said it was already perfect, and they knew it wasn't, because it was a compromise document. No one was really happy with it. So as it's gone on, we've amended it, we've changed our history, values, and so on, so that we continually get better. But I think George Washington was a big product of that and a good example of Americans to follow. And by no means was he perfect, though. No, but no person is perfect, and I think we got pretty close, using him as an example.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, people of Kiribati. We really cannot wait until we go visit and get to know a little bit more about you and see you in person. Until then, we'll continue to host town halls to get to know a little bit more about the work that the U.S. government is doing with Kiribati, in partnership with Kiribati, and also be able to connect with you. I think it's very important to be able to connect with the people that we are hoping to be friends with. So thank you so much for your time, and we will see you next time. Bye.